So welcome to today's channel. If today is the first time you're on this channel, I urge you to subscribe to the channel, because on this channel we'll talk about health and safety issues, we talk about environment issues, and as well as risk management issues. So if you are interested in getting content on these areas, I'll urge you to subscribe to this channel for more updates. Today I'm talking about hazard and risk. Hazard, risk. In most cases, we use it, sometimes when we are supposed to use hazard, we use risk. Sometimes when we are supposed to use risk, we use hazard. So this video is very simple on these two areas. So at the end of the day, we can differentiate between what a hazard is and what a risk is whenever we come across any of them. Right, so when we say a hazard is simply anything that has the potential to cause a harm. Right, so anything that has the potential to cause a harm is a hazard. They are potential source of harm. Right, potential source of harm. And when we say risk, risk is how likelihood a particular hazard will result in a harm. Right, so how likelihood that an identified hazard will lead to a harm, will lead to an injury, will lead to a loss, and how impactful is that loss becomes a risk. Right, so hazard is potential source of harm, anything that has the potential to cause a harm. Risk is when the hazard manifests. How likelihood that hazard is going to manifest is the risk, and how impactful or how severe the particular impact will be becomes the risk of it. So let's look at certain simple or basic examples. Let's look at ladies' heel. Their long heel. So ladies' long heel becomes a hazard. Why is it a hazard? Because it has a potential. There's a potential in it that can cause accident. What is it? You might not walk, or you might walk on an unstable grounds, and when you walk on an unstable grounds, it's likely you can fall and get injured. However, so that becomes a hazard. Another thing, you might not even know how to walk in properly at certain places, of which you can also fall, trip, and however you can come into contact with a lying cable, and it can struck you and you might fall and get injured and all of that. So at least there's potential source of danger or accident in it, so it becomes a hazard. Now, what is the risk in that particular hazard? The risk in that is how likelihood is it that this long heel will cause an accident. Right, so how likelihood that this long heel will cause an injury, right, and how severe is it going to be if should he record that injury or accident becomes the risk. So the risk is the hazard is the long heel that has the potential to cause a harm. The risk is the likelihood, how likely that particular hazard, or how likely your long heel can cause an accident, and when it causes the accident, how severe, how impact is it going to have. Right, so that becomes the risk too. So this is just the difference. Let me see another. We can have let's say in an organization, in a construction site. However, movement of equipment is a high risk. Why? Because we are an organization, we have people, we have other properties around, we have visitors, third party coming into our visitors and all of that. So movement of equipment is a hazard. Why is it a hazard? It has the potential to knock down an employee. It has the potential to knock down a visitor. It has the potential to knock down any stakeholder that comes into contact with our operations. It also has the potential even to come into contact or collide with other properties in the facility at the same time. The equipment itself is a hazard because it can overturn. Right, so these are the hazards associated with the equipment movement. So equipment movement is really a hazard. Let's look at the risk out of this hazard. The risk is how likely is it that the equipment, being it excavator, backhoe, any other equipment, forklift, however, how likely the forklift or the excavator can collide with an employee, and how severe is it going to be? How severe the collision is it going to be? If it results in an injury, how severe is the injury going to be? Becomes the risk component of it. Now, don't forget, risk is managed by likelihood and severity. So whenever you are measuring risk, you look at how likely is it going to be, and when it happens, how severe is going to be the accident, how severe the accident is going to be. So these are two I don't know if I should take, let me see. So let's take the last and final example. So let's say when we go to the petroleum industry, so let's say release of hydrocarbons, right, becomes a hazard. I mean, when we go to the downstream sector of the oil and gas, release of hydrocarbons is more pertinent to their operations because they are always loading and unloading product into tanks. So release of hydrocarbons becomes a hazard. Release of hydrocarbons becomes a hazard. Now, what is the risk associated with this hazard? The risk associated with this hazard is how likely employees are going to inhale, or how likely employees are going to, how likely the employees are going to be exposed to these hydrocarbons, and how impactful is it going to have on them when they inhale these hydrocarbons becomes the risk of it. So that is it. Well, let's look at risk controls. Risk controls we have. So largely when you are controlling risks, so far as your operation is concerned, when you want to control risks, identify, we have hierarchy, we have steps of controls you have to go through to do away with a particular risk, or let's say minimize, or however you can fight the particular risk. The very first one is elimination. The second one is substitution. From substitution we come to engineering. After engineering we come to safe systems of work, and from safe system of work we come to the last one, which is the personal protective equipment. I mean, that's the last control we target when all the initial controls fail. So let's say, again, let's use our ladies' hair for example. I mean, it's unfortunate I'm using ladies' hair, but pardon me, but that is it. So let's use the ladies' hair for example. So the hazard identifier is the long hair, right? So, and don't forget, risk comes out of hazard. So when you're able to stop the hazard, automatically you stop the risk, because all risk comes out of a particular hazard. So we target the hazard. Once you kill the hazard, you kill the risk finally. So let's say we are looking at the ladies' long hair again. So we identify that the long hair is a hazard. It's a hazard for the ladies, and we look at the how it can cause and all of that. So the long hair becomes a hazard. So as a company, we've identified a high heel for ladies into our premises is a hazard. How can we fight it, or how can we do away with this hazard? So let's go through the controls. So first we look at elimination. Is it possible we can eliminate the particular hazard? So let's say we can eliminate it at all. We won't have, so we are doing away with long hair. Is it possible? Let's say now we are going to introduce a different, maybe normal shoe without a heel, right? So when we do that, at least we eliminate the hazard of the long hair. So at the very first control point, elimination, we eliminate the hazard. We don't need to go to the next stage because we've taken it away. But here is the case, maybe the organization is an entertainment organization, and wearing long heels and however also fetches the company money. So we can't do away with it. It has to, the long haul have to come, because that is what entices people to do business with that. Okay, so if elimination don't work, let's look at substitution. Maybe we can change the long haul to a more shorter one, which will still be long, but it still brings us the customers. Will that one work? If that one fit perfectly, then we'll substitute the high heel. Then now we'll come to the medium high heel, if you may call it, and If that can work, fine. Let's say still it won't work, because still we need the long hill. The short medium is not attractive to people to come to do business with that. We still need a high hill, so it means the medium high hill will not work. Now let's go to the next stage, which is an engineering control. Engineering control means modifying just the hazard, right? The hazard you've identified, you modify some engineering controls to kill that. So let's say if we're looking at the high hill again, and if it's too thin, and because of that it has the potential to fall easily and all of that, let's now modify it to make the high a bit wider, so that it can have stability when you step on the ground, or when you walk and all of that. Maybe that will work. If it doesn't still work, we are still in there. We're going to safe system of work. Safe system of work is simply writing down procedures to fight the hazard. So in this case, we are looking at, let's say, with a high hill example, we are looking at training. So now we train the ladies on how to walk properly in long hills. You're writing safe system of work for them. Maybe when you come into work, wear your short hill from your car driving to the premises. Now when you come to the premises and you are entering your office, you wear the long to your office. When you are sitting down and working and you are not attending to any customer, you can be in your short hill. When you have to go to a meeting, when you have to be engaged in business activity, wear your long hill. So these are safe system of work. These are procedures